Hi everyone, welcome to our Alumni Night. This is an event organized by MUISS, and my name is Chao. I will be the host today, and I have Mia, another teammate with me, who will be helping out as well. And thank you for our panelists to join us today. So can you guys all see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah, great. So just to quickly, run you through. Oh, actually, before we get started, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we are meeting today. I pay my respects to the elders, past and present and emerging. And just to quickly run you through how we will the alumni night will work. We will basically have a quick introduction of the panelists. So today we will have Hannah from ISC, the International Student Engagement Team. She will talk a little bit about the program and different kind of support that you will have for final year students before we will move on to for the alumni to introduce themselves. And then at the end, we will have most of the time for Q&A where you guys can ask questions, and I will encourage you to pop the question in the Q&A box. So just some housekeeping thing. Please send your question through the Q&A rather than using the chat function. So we can select your question and ask them live. And if we don't have time to go through all of the questions, the alumni will be happy to type in their answers as we go as well. So please ask a specific question. And if you have to target one specific alumnus, please send put their name in your question as well. And please submit your questions in a respectful manner. If you have any feedback or comments on our sessions, please scan the QR code in the bottom right corner. You will also get a chance to have win our $20 voucher lucky draw. So without further ado, I will now let Hannah talk about the ISC and what they have to offer you guys. So I will stop sharing my screen.
Perfect, thank you. So let me bring up this. Can everybody see the slides okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, they look good. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much, Chao. I am Hannah from the International Student Engagement Team. I always have to remember to say that in case I forget. It's really nice to see you all. I'm going to keep this really quick and short. But essentially, I want to give an overview of resources that are available. For visa questions, obviously a lot of people think about that now, and obviously the situation is quite complex with the border closures and all the other things that would be concerning you if you're considering going home or staying here. Number one advice is definitely, if you do see an agent, make sure they're registered with what's called MARA, which is the Migration Agents Registration Authority, long name, but super important. The other thing that I'd really recommend is don't make any decisions on your own. Department of Home Affairs is our migration. Do call them to check a lot of things. A lot of things are free or self-service, so you might find that you don't even need to pay for certain migration services. So you could actually end up saving a lot of money rather than doing everything through an agent. So just something to look out for. Just an idea from the audience, and I'm not sure how many of you, if you let me know if you're in the final semester, or if through thumbs up or anything, or comments, if you're final semester or your second year or third year, that will help. But for those that are graduating, just know that you can get your graduation documents through WES. You need to wait till your course completed to get your course completion documents. The way that you can check if you're actually course completed is by checking your unofficial academic transcript in WES. It will pop up as course completed, and then you can get your course completion letter. Graduation itself takes longer than that. So you might even be graduating next year. So if you're not graduating in a December ceremony and you need something to show employers that you're finished, that course completion letter is super helpful. All the samples of the letters and the costs and times to get them are all on the Monash Connect website. So even if you're needing something like enrollment verification to prove that you're studying, all the letters like that are all available. Yes. So what else do we have? Help with graduation. So yes, you might have a lot of questions about when the ceremonies are, when you apply, all those dates and things. A lot of them have been updated on the COVID-19 fact sheet. So definitely look at that. You don't want to be planning like flights, trips, for family and all of that kind of stuff until you're really confident that you know when your ceremony is going to be. There is also an option, I don't know if you've all heard about this, called graduating in absentia. That means you don't actually go to the ceremony, but you are still officially graduated and you get all your documentation. So that is another option, which doesn't have a cost except for the documents. So if you are really stuck on that and you can't get help from Monash Connect, you can definitely connect to our team and we can help you kind of navigate that, because I definitely understand that it's quite a lot of confusing information. So don't feel like you're alone. Next part. If you're moving or if you're leaving or moving, so practical considerations. So especially if you're in your final year, you might need to move home, or you might even be considering moving home now for just purely budgeting reasons. If that's you, I definitely check the finishing uni page if you're in last year, so you can plan ahead. There's actually a lot of things to think about, and there's really helpful checklists there available. If you're thinking about moving home, definitely speak to the Monash Residential Off-Campus team. They're trained legal tenancy advisors, so they'll exactly tell you what to do to avoid really expensive lease break costs. Even if you're just thinking about moving in general, definitely speak to that team, because it can be really hard to do the conversations with your landlord on your own. The other thing I want to quickly mention is that for those that aren't in final year but are just having trouble with paying their rent or paying for living expenses because you're here in Australia, there are some options in terms of rent reduction schemes at the moment. So do also speak to MRS about getting rent relief. There are many schemes through City of Melbourne and other programs that they can help with. And even my team can help you investigate options for financial support. I know that financial stress is a big factor now with a lot of people losing part-time work. So it's definitely something you can reach out to my team for help with as well. Okay, next thing. So again, as I mentioned, the Finishing Uni Guide has pretty much everything you'll need to know for your last year. And there's a returning home from checklist too. You can scan the QR code to bring it up. As I said, accommodation, our team works in conjunction with MRS off campus to help students with accommodation queries, as well as financial concerns that you have. So one of the roles that my team has is called student case management. Essentially, if you have a series of complicated issues, as well as needing welfare support, my team can actually step in and help you work out, okay, what resources are available, what discounts are available, what community supports are available. So please don't feel like you have to figure that out on your own. We're definitely here to help you all. Okay, and make sure you get through to graduation, and so you can go on to your successful life. That's the main point. We want to get you through your uni life and happy and healthy. Okay, so last point, as I said, rent relief, really important one. There is a rent relief grant available at the moment. We'll send these PDF out to everyone that has attended, so you can expect MUISS will send that to you. That's got the link to the rent relief grant. If you're going through the rent relief grant and you're confused, you can definitely reach out to MRS off campus. Just Google them, MRS off campus Monash, through Ask Monash or through my team through a referral. Either way we can help. So just to let you know that. Career resources. So this one is a little bit different, but super relevant for tonight. A lot of you are going to be researching, okay, what career do I want? Especially for those that want to work in Australia, this website is incredibly helpful. It will tell you what the growth is, what the pay is, what the skills are, what the average work is, the average age of people working in that industry. So pretty much giving you a up-to-date snapshot of exactly that industry and the tasks and skills involved. So for those planning their career, which I'm sure most of you are because you're all logged in for this, this is a really great resource to get ideas from. And it's government website, so it's super trustworthy. So definitely take a look at that. Next, Career Connect is offering one-on-one 20-minute consultations through their DigiChat program. It's really helpful. So if you're looking to write your interview, do your interview practice, key selection criteria, which is really tiring for everyone. Trust me, I've done so many key selection criteria and I still find it extremely tough and tight and bothersome. So they could definitely help you with that. And you can book appointments through the Career Connect website or just search DigiChat. Okay, that's pretty much it from me. I like to leave it short and sweet. You've got the email address for my team there. So if anything I've said tonight really stands out to you as something that you're interested in or want to learn more about, definitely feel free to send across an email. I hope you have an amazing night with these wonderful alumni. And I want to thank MUISS and Chow especially for being such an awesome facilitator and helping put this event together.
Thank you so much, Hannah, for your kind words, and also a lot of very important information, especially for students in the final semester or final year. And yes, I just want to say that I would highly recommend you to go and seek advice or support from Hannah's team, because they're very dedicated to support international students, and they will be able to point you to the right person or the right direction. So Hannah just popped in the chat.
Let me put in all attendees.
Yeah, so this is the email address that you can go to if you have any questions or concerns, and they will be able to point you to the right person, the right direction. So thank you so much.
Thanks so much. Have a great night, everybody.
Yeah, thank you.
Bye.
Bye. So let's go back to our slides. Can you guys see my slide? Yep, great. So now let's move to our main part of tonight. So tonight I would like to introduce 4 alumni who, who are super kind to take their time off on a Saturday to come and share their experiences with us. So we have Byron, Kiki, Anna, and Helene. And each of them will quickly introduce themselves, and then we will move to the Q&A sessions where the Q&A section where you can actually ask them more specific questions. So I will let Byron share his screen. Stop share.
Sure, I'll just unmute myself if that's okay.
Yes.
Just give me 2 seconds. All right, you'll probably just see a background here that's got my school logo on it. Just ignore that while I open up my PowerPoint. All right, so just good evening, everyone. Welcome and coming. It's always nice to be able to get back and sort of just have a chat with students and people who are looking to graduate into the education field. Now, I'll burn through this as quickly as I can so that I don't take up too much of everyone else's time. But if you want to get in contact with me, that's my LinkedIn profile there. You can search me up, and yeah, I'm more than happy to have a chat because we'll probably run out of time in this sense. So I've structured my slides a little bit like a lesson as how I would normally do at school. I'm a secondary school educated, qualified teacher. I work at Salesian College in Chadstone. Now that said, I do have to say that anything I say tonight is my views. It's not anything. Whilst I work for the school, I'm not representing the school here tonight. It's just personally my own experience. So just my learning intentions. This is stuff that I generally put up on the board before I start my lessons. And these are just 3 things for my students to focus themselves on. And particularly for tonight, without reading off the screen, is essentially to gain an insight into the contextual understanding of what education is like here in Australia. And also understand that Victorian schools, I guess, are a little bit different, particularly looking at the COVID situation at the moment. But look, basically, that's what I'd be intending and hoping for you to get out of this little presentation. So the success criteria is generally what I give my kids in classes to say, by the end of the lesson, can you please make sure you do these 3 things? And in this case, I always like to use the examples of state, explain, example, be able to tell me what or the reason why you chose to enter the education profession, be able to explain it and be able to provide an example. So this is just a little bit of a tick box thing I generally do with my year 12s as well. Apologies, I'm talking a bit quick because I want to make sure everyone else has got enough time. And generally what I do at the end of the lesson, what I do to keep my kids on their toes a little bit, is to do something called an exit ticket, which means that before they're allowed to leave the room, they have to be able to tell me one thing that they've picked up from the lesson. Now, obviously, I'm not going to make you do that today, but just giving you some ideas in terms of what you possibly can do. Now, excuse me, not going to read through this whole thing, but just a little bit about myself. Look, I graduated from Monash in 2009 with my Bachelor's of Science, but I did my dip ed in 2010, and then I went and worked for quite a while, and then I came back and did my Masters of Educational Leadership, but at a different university in 2017. I'm a biology teacher by training. I've kind of done a lot of science, I've done a lot of maths, but because I work in a Catholic school, I'm teaching in religious education as well. My current title is the Dean of Students at the middle school at Salesian College. I look after what we call the pastoral roles, which means discipline, looking at learning behaviours, looking at specialised learning support, looking at student wellbeing generally. That's my area. But previous to that, I was a year level coordinator in a similar role. And I also looked after staff development for a year, which was interesting. But anyway, you do what you have to do. Okay, so my student experience, I spent a lot of my time at the Gippsland campus before it became Federation Uni, but I did spend some time at the Clayton campus as well. I was the ISA president, so that's like MUISS, but for Gippsland. I did that for about a year, and I was also on the board of MUISS. So I had a lot of experience in student unionism, where I actually got my first jobs. And I actually decided to return to university. I had no intention of becoming a teacher, but I ended up working in a science field and ended up working for a guy who was an ex-teacher. And he said, hey, why don't you give this a go? And just reference to my last point here, you know, I obtained my first school, job through a guy called Hugh Brown. He used to be the chaplain at Monash Gippsland, and he's actually a Catholic priest, and he put me onto a job in the area that I used to work at. And I've credited him here because effectively the job that I've still got now is as a consequence of networking that I made at Monash. Okay, so just some quick tips for me. Survivor University, compartmentalize, balance, and prioritize. You have to be able to I guess, put yourself into a basket where you go, well, where's my work time? Where's my study time? And where's my alone time, I guess, in that sense. Make sure that you're able to network effectively, get in contact with other people. And the fact that you're here tonight as well probably goes to show that you're putting your foot out there as well. You want to be able to put some feelers out, but be able to make connections positively, because within the education community, particularly here in Australia, where in Melbourne, people kind of know each other and they talk to each other. And I'm lucky that for me personally, I got my second job here, well, in suburban Melbourne when I returned back from the country, through networking that I made when I was out at Gippsland. And of course, at most point, not that I need to tell students this at all, but remember to have some fun. I think it's really important to do that. And this last point here, I wanted to just quote as well: opinions are not facts. It's something that I got off a guy called Associate Professor Shanton Chang. He's from Melbourne Uni, but he was actually a member of MUISS many, many years ago. And I actually sat down and collaborated with him a few weeks ago. Top-notch guy. He wanted me to say hi to everyone for him. But basically the idea that being able to put yourself out there and make sure that you understand your context in terms of going into education, know the school you're going into before you sort of just throw yourself in there, because schools will pick up on it very, very quickly. Okay, so just really quickly, for me, I've sort of touched on that already in that sense. Look, I got my first job through contacts in that sense. I've done some work at co-ed schools. I've done some work at a boys' school in that sense, both in the independent and state government sector. So that's just my experience. I'm happy to answer any questions later. Sorry, I'm talking quickly. I just want to get through this really quick so that other people have a chance to talk. But most importantly for me, if you forget everything else, remember this: be authentic in what you do, because you define your success in whatever way you want to have. Because, without making too many jokes about it, being able to look at something and say, if I'm going to become a doctor or a lawyer or whatever, we all know realistically that not everyone's going to hit that benchmark. So define success in the way that works for you, and be open about it. And be, I guess, authentic in the way that you take your approach, because people will see through that and understand the culture of the school that you're working in. Okay, so that's just my contact there on the screen. I'll probably send that through. I'll stick it in the chat box later on if you want to rip it off from there, and we can have a chat later on. All right, thanks very much for that. I will stop my screen share.
Well, thank you so much, Baron. That was super insightful and informative. I think I already sent it, like your LinkedIn profile on the chat as well, if people want to, reach out to you. But then, of course, if you guys have any specific questions, you can always pop it in the Q&A function, and our alumni will be happy to answer it. So I encourage you guys, once again, to send through your questions. So now let's move on to our second panelist, Kiki. And do you have a slide to share as well?
Yes, sure.
Yeah, great.
All right. Hello, guys. Uh, Good evening. So I try to keep the time. Okay. So my name is Rizkiana. You can call me Kiki. It must be strange for some of Filipino friends, but you can call me Kiki. Okay. So tonight I would like to share my experience and during my studying at Monash. First of all, I apologize if this situation is not relatable enough to what I have experienced because of this quarantine time. All right. So when I was studying at Monash, I actively involved in some organizations. The first one is MPA, Monash Postgraduate Associations. And then in English Connect, I become the ambassador. And then also become a mentee and mentor at Faculty of Educations. And also I volunteer actively at Monash Training and Professional Development. So I had them to observe and giving feedback to the tutor. All right, and then let's move on off-campus activities. So I also, I am an awardee of Australia Award Scholarship. So in my situations that I need to return home exactly after once I complete my educations at Monash. So I always think that I only have 2 years to stay in Australia. So I really want to use that time effectively. So I want to experience a lot of activities, or I want to experience traveling in Australia in that 2 years time. Okay, so here off-campus activities, I joined on award enrichment program. So from my scholarship, I have many programs. I got that one being selected, and I have like 12 weeks of programs. And also I joined some traditional dance. Here is Lenggogeni. I perform Indonesian dance. And the last one, I also joined some organizations of the campus. All right, and then tips or strategies of how to survive university. I think I not really have a right to tell about this because my friend noticed that I have a bit unusual ways in studying, but I hope I don't mislead you guys. So I would like to divide this into 2 things. First is external and the other one is internal. So I think the thing that I got a lot during my study is I got mentoring program. So I joined it and I feel it's very useful. It was very useful. And then I always have consultation with my lecturer. So whenever I got the task, I always ask my lecturer whether I was on the right track or not. So it means I got the draft and then I let them see the draft. And then I work on the feedback. And then finding learning buddies, that's really helpful. And the last one is find your learning space. I know during this quarantine, the only learning space that we can lean on is in our house, but I hope you make it as comfortable as possible so you can enjoy your learning in your house. And then from internal, I got, first thing is knowing your own way of learning, because I got some of my friends feeling guilty when they see the other peers are studying and while we are doing something else. We feel like a bit of guilty. But once if you know your way of learning, for example, kind of nocturnal or someone that only can learn at the almost the due date or something like a procrastinator, but that is not a good advice. But the point is know your own way of study. That's really help you. And then a usual calendar, that's what I practice a lot. And then set the weekly goals plus the remainder. And then again, traveling and join a trip. Maybe you can go to suburb, not necessarily visiting another states or countries, but make sure you enjoy Melbourne a lot. Maybe you can go also to the, you know, you can join all the activities. But again, because this quarantine, I hope these situations, this pandemic will end soon, so you will have at least similar experience like mine. But if it's not, and you have some condition like me that you have to return home right away after you're completing your studies, I hope you have another chance and opportunities to study and come back to Australia. Or if not, get a job, make more money, and have a travel. to Australia. And then next, this is my job experiences. Like Hannah said before, I got many information from Monash Career. I also let them to review my CV. That's really helpful. And then when I was in Australia, I worked as an educator in an outside school or hours care. And then I work at Pearson as a professional marker. This is seasonal. And then also a private tutor during the weekends for my students. Okay, so she prepare for PCE tests. So during the weekend, I have Indonesian season like 2 to 3 hours with her. Okay, and the last tips for career or personal planning after graduation. So here are some tips. I believe that you guys experience this as well. So here I write that you have to keep your eyes on targeted jobs. Make sure that your plan is not only one, and then follows their website on social media for an update. And then find the information of their requirement or job descriptions, and then upgrade your skill, prepare for their test and selection, build networking. And the last one, this is kind of like stalking, but actually what I did is I follow some of my targeted school. Now I'm working at a Scholastica. So before I apply this job, I follow some of the employee on their social media on Instagram, because what I want to see is, do they have their life? What I mean by life is, I don't want to work where I have to spend 24/7 on my work. I want to have time for myself to volunteer, to do things that I want, and not really have a pressures on my job. So when I see them and I see that they still have the balanced life, and then I'm so into that. I'm so into that job. And one lesson learned is about salary negotiations. I found it very tricky and challenging once you talk about the salary negotiations. What I have practiced is try to find and research to do the research as much as possible, because when you talk about this, all you need to know is your professional value. Because like in my experience, I really influenced myself during the negotiations. I really felt that cultural values that I had, and what I think that I should not use that, but instead I only stick to the professional value. So make sure before you do that, make sure you did some research, and you can get a good deal. Cross finger. Okay, and this is the last one. Terima kasih, thank you. I got the quote from John Monash: equip yourself for life, not solely for your own benefit, but for the benefit of the whole community. So thank you again. Terima kasih, bye.
Thank you, Kiki, for your really helpful tips. So I will continue to share my screen. Can you guys see it? Do you see the slides?
Yeah.
Yeah, great. So yeah, we just had Kiki, and I also pop it in the chat, Kiki's social media information if you want to reach out to her on LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram. So now let's move to our third panelist, Anna.
Yeah.
Yeah, over to you.
Yes, additional PPT because I just want to talk, and because of also the limitation of time. Okay, hi everyone. Thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity. It is really nice to see you all. And it is still afternoon in Indonesia, especially in Central Java. So you can call me Anna. I studied for Master of TESOL from February 2016 until January 2018, and then I graduated in April in 2018 too. So it has been 3 years ago today. I just come back from Melbourne, and now I'm a teacher, or you can call me actually a lecturer. I'm teaching English for the first year of university student in Central Java, Indonesia. But I'm not a full-time lecturer. I still a part-time lecturer where I just teach six classes in the semester, and also now I'm teaching online because, as you know, like the COVID-19, where me and my colleague in university must working from home. So that's why I also grateful, although I still not become a full-time lecturer, but I still can use my time to develop my passions. For example, every Saturday before COVID-19, I'm running a footy coaching clinic in Salatiga, Central Java. Actually, you can see on my website, I have some pictures there, but unluckily today I didn't make a PowerPoint. I just want to talk. So I also developed a footy coaching clinic in Central Java. This is based on my experience when I was in Melbourne, when I was a MUISS student. So I involved and immersed myself to many activities, both in campus and outside of campus. When I was in campus at the Faculty of Education, first, I focus on academic, and also I take a research pathway at the end of the semester because I'm thinking that I want to be a lecturer. I want to be academic in the future. So I take a research pathway, and I'm happy because I got high distinction for my thesis. And then at the outside of class, I joined Monash Education Ambassador. Actually, the ambassador also based on the selection. I apply. Actually, at the time, I also not quite confident to apply, but then I remember that the purpose of the Monash Ambassador is to contribute to Monash community, and then I apply for Monash Education Ambassador program, and then I also got interview at the time, and I was selected. And luckily, because of this connection from ambassador, I also still involved in Monash event in Indonesia. For example, there was Monash alumni event in Indonesia last year in Jakarta. And then I also get email from the staff. I also get opportunities to meet the staff when they were in Indonesia. And then the second one, I also joined Learning Hub. Learning Hub is additional program from the faculty where it was to prepare international students to give information. So, for example, if you are new students come to Monash, I think, for example, you were maybe culture shock or confused to choose the course. And then I got the information about Learning Hub, so I joined that. So at the first semester, I become mentee, and the second semester, I become mentor, and the next one, I become student leader too at the Learning Hub program. So from this outside of class, I also develop my networking, and then I meet also some Indonesian students, and also it give me chance to know Monash staff at the time. So now it is really cool. I mean, I can feel that networking is very important, and it can be connected to each other. For example, although I am here in Indonesia, but when Monash staff come to Indonesia, they contact me, and then I still like connected to them. And also this one MUISS, for example, also I know this information from the Monash staff too. So thank you for giving me the opportunity, and I'm so happy to involve and share my experience. So this is my activity still at the Monash community. And then outside of Monash, I joined footy club. So at that time, I'm curious to know about the most favorite sport for Melbourne. So I searched on the news. It was footy. So I searched about AFL, and then I find information there is an Indonesian and Australian footy club. And then I joined that, and then like, oh, I mean, this experience is actually not just about sport at the time. For example, like I get new family. For example, my coach was really supportive and appreciative. Although I just new player, but they like give me appreciation when I can hand pass, when I can kick the ball. You know, like the shape of the ball, which is really new for me at the time. But my coach always appreciate me, like, well done, Anna, good job. So this is one of my reflection. When I come back to Indonesia, I share my experience, especially how sport can connect it to how to empower women. So in my context, Central Java, I also involved with Islamic boarding school, where there is Islamic female boarding school in my area, and then I saw the student that they were like less confident, they were shy, and then but they, at the same time they are excited to listen to my experience, and then I think that footy can be applied to this girl, and then every Saturday I manage a footy training, and I can see how the students change. For example, they become more expressive, they become more confident, and the thing for me is I'm happy because there is changing behavior for my students, especially these girls, because they can like develop teamwork, so they also know better to their friends. So this is the thing that what I am doing based on my passions and experience. Besides I'm teaching English, I also develop other passions, and also it connect to my experience when I was in Melbourne. And then yeah, still like some more things that I'm doing is, for example, I also edit some videos, my footy training last year, so I want to put on some YouTube. Actually, I have put it, but I want to put more, so you can see my YouTube Anna Surjanta, or I also build this website santrios.id, so you can see all my footy coaching clinic and some women empowerment program in Salatiga, Central Java, Indonesia. And this book is my bachelor degree. When I was bachelor degree, I also write a book, and yeah. So I think that's all for me. And I want to say that just do what you love and love what you do. And I think if you have some passion, that was okay. So don't limit yourself only one passion. You can develop some passions, and it will be connected to your qualification, experience, and networking. So just do what you love and love what you do. I think that's all. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Hannah. That was really impressive and inspiring, because I can see that you're such a versatile person who were involved in a lot of different activities. So that's really amazing. Oh, I think do you guys still see my slides? Oh, maybe something is on. Okay. All right. Can you guys see it now? Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's now move to our final panelist, Helene. Thank you for waiting.
No worries. And hello, everyone. I'm Helene, and I'm originally from China. I graduated from Monash in 2019, which is last year, December. So I'm actually a very fresh graduate. And I studied Bachelor of Early Years and Primary Education. I came to Australia in 2015 and started my career international study in Monash College foundation year. And then after 1 year, I started my Bachelor of Education in Peninsula campus. Studying education is always been one of my dreams, especially in an overseas environment, because going through my Chinese education environment from kindergarten to year 12, it gave me a lot of insight and thoughts of how the education in China will develop in future. And it also gave me a lot of inspirations to become involved developing Chinese education or even international education in the future. So I chose Monash. I did a lot of research before I chose this uni. I know Monash is one of the top uni for job-ready graduates. It has amazing education resources and networks that can help me to develop my knowledge in education, and as well as not only in Australia, but also in global aspects. And I would like to also talk about how to surviving from a uni. I think the most important thing will be always plan ahead. When it comes to the mid or the end of the semester, there's always a lot of assignment, presentation, quiz are due at the same time. It probably like 4 or 5 at a time, 1 week. So it will be really rushed for you if you didn't plan ahead and everything squished together. So, but it's very lucky for me. Education doesn't have any exam. Very good. So always plan ahead and leave adequate time to do some research, writing, referencing, and proofreading. Also consulting with your tutor, and sometimes also go to the library to look for some academic support, like helping with the drafting, proofreading. It's free of charge. It's excellent, and they are really nice to follow, and they're so nice to even will follow up with your assignments and will collect some information and feedback about the units you're studying, which I think is really useful and helpful to help me to get through all the assignments. And for my job experience, during my 4 years bachelor study, besides the amazing placement experience in different settings, I also began to work very early, like around 20, in my year 2. In my year 1, I did a lot of volunteer in early childhood settings. And in my year 2, I actually got job into there. I volunteered at a local childcare in my first year uni, and in the second year, I began to work as an educator and a teaching aide in primary school. You actually don't have, for early childhood, you don't have to wait till you finish the whole degree. When you graduate, you will be more than just an educator. You will be level up to be a teacher, classroom teacher, to lead your classroom or even lead the whole center in the educational aspect. So I was actually doing the educator course in early childhood. If you finish 30% of your study, you can become a certificate free educator. If you finish half of your study, you can become a diploma qualified educator, which can lead a room from 0 to 3, which is really excellent. Give me a lot of experience in early childhood. So when I got all those experience, it helps me a lot when I graduate for the graduate job, because I have a lot of experience, helps me to understand the professionality and build my confidence on teaching. And except for that, I also attended a lot of workshops from Career Connect to help me with the resume, cover letter, and interview questions. I was quite lucky that I received a lot of offers from different schools, and I have the choice to choose the one right for me and also bargain with them with the salary. And after graduation, my tips will be always be proactive and dive into the real context of the industry. Doesn't matter if you're going back to your country or you would like to stay in Australia or working in the international environment, always get into the industry fast, no matter the position. For me, like I starting from low and now I'm an educational leader. So it doesn't matter, as long as you get the experience and you got the confidence, which is most important thing that I think, and you build your expertise during the real experience, then the employer will really see you and you'll be really likely to be successful. Yeah, and that's all. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you so much, Helene, for sharing with us your experiences and your wisdom. So I think, yeah, that's pretty much from the panelists in terms of their experiences, their journey. So now it's time for a Q&A. Again, I will encourage everyone to send through their Q&A via the Q&A function. But in the meantime, we do have some pre-collected questions that the students have sent through before the session. So one of them is, I guess is a bit general, but the question is, how do you make the most of a teaching degree? Does anybody want to start off first?
Sorry, yeah. What's the question again?
Okay, so the question is, how do we make the most of the teaching degree?
I'm happy to respond to that if no one else wants to.
Yeah, sure.
No,
You can
everyone's
just
gone quiet? Okay, all right, I'll go.
Thank you, Lauren.
I think I suppose that before you get into, I assume that the large majority of the people within this, I guess, meeting should be in your final year, pretty close to graduating anyway. So I think if you're sort of getting to the point where you're going, well, if you're still questioning whether or not the teaching degree is going to be what's for you, I think that's the first question you've got to ask. You know, is this really what's for you? The next question is, particularly with your teaching placements here in Australia, you sort of get that experience as you go. But if the question is, how do you, I suppose, get the most out of the teaching degree? I think it really depends on what you mean by the most out of. Is it talking about, you know, progressing through the ranks in that sense, as I think Helene was alluding to, I guess, in that sense? Or are you looking to get into the classroom and make a difference in the lives of the people who you meet every day? I guess it really depends on what you mean. Here in Australia, especially if you're looking at that, the increment, if you work at a Victorian or a Catholic school, independent schools are a bit different. There is a system with regard to I guess, salaries and pay. So that's pegged anyway. So you can't really negotiate too much on that. But I think ultimately the question you've got to ask is, what defines success for you? If you're really looking at making the most money out of it in that sense, I think, you know, that's a bit of a tricky, always a contentious point, which is why money is always an issue when you have negotiation in conversations. But if your question is really, how can I amend or make a difference in the lives of all the kids who I get in contact with on a daily basis? I think just by graduating, getting it in there and be, I guess, confident to take calculated risks, I think you'll find yourself in a very rewarding career.
I just
Wow.
want
Yep.
Byron, that is so cool. I just want to add a bit. In my cases, because I learned inclusive and inclusive and special education at Monash, so I really want to apply it into practice, because I was an international student, so I didn't have placements experience in Australia. So as much as possible, I try to find a school that has practiced those inclusive values in their curriculum, in their school. So that's become my place for me to learn and also to put it into practice. Before later, I plan to go to another school to apply it or to share it to more people. So I think the value that I got from uni is the things that I really want to apply in my work.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. Those are really amazing answers. I think the question's a bit vague. I don't know if the person who asked the question is actually here today. If you, you know, if you want to clarify your question, you can always, you know, pop it in the Q&A function or in the chat. But I guess, yeah, Byron's and Kiki's answer, I think, were really great answers to that question. And yeah, so I guess another question that I have is, you know, since I'm really curious about how your actually like daily experiences in the current situation of a pandemic where everything has to be done like remotely. I can see that you know, you take this very seriously and really try to like inspire your students and you know, and I think that's really amazing, but I can imagine that it must be really difficult for you as well, since you lack that kind of like physical contact with your students. So how do you actually deal with that?
Can I answer first?
Yep, sure. Thank you, Kiki.
So in my school, we have a totally remote learning process now. For some stuff like books from library or another things that support their learning, we will have drive-through so then they can get their stuff, and then overall we just do have a remote learning process. So I think to engage with the student is a bit difficult because we can see there directly, just like you said. So as a homeroom and program leader, I have a time every morning and in the afternoon. We call it homeroom and checkpoint sessions. So in that time, I try to create bonding with the students. I used to play some ice-breaking games and also some videos that have some related issues, because what I want is for them to engage during the learning process. So as much as possible, we as a teachers, we have like a weekly meetings to evaluate and to reflect on our programs. If we think that is not engaging enough, and then we can change something. But so far, I'm happy and I'm proud enough with what we did with our students, because they are really engaging, and we use all the technological stuff. We use Jamboard and Google Sheet, Google Classroom, CISO, anything possible. We just throw and try it all the stuff, and then we evaluate which one they engage enough, and then we stick to it.
Awesome. Does anybody want to add to that?
Yeah, I want to put additional comment. I also agree like what Kiki told me. Basically, in Indonesia, it's very challenging in this time because some of my students has a challenge in the internet connection itself. It was real that, for example, in some signal is so low, and then if I want to coordinate, for example, using Zoom or using Google Meet, but they have problem with the internet access. So at the last semester, especially, and especially when we just like surprised and shocked about COVID-19, my university haven't provide a class. So in the last semester, I use the tools that I can do. For example, then I use WhatsApp group because most student and most Indonesian use WhatsApp group, and also it is easy because we can make WhatsApp group and then we can coordinate about the assignments on WhatsApp group. And then for the face-to-face, last semester, as I told, I want to try Zoom or Google Meet, but some of my students has a limitation of internet, and then I just ask them, so you can speak in English based on the particular topic, and then please upload on your own YouTube channel. So yeah, last semester was challenging, and this semester, luckily, my university already prepared the platform for all the university students and lecturer. It is called like e-class. Yeah, e-class. So we create the classroom, the rules. It is like Moodle, and then the lecturer managed by themselves. Yeah, it's just kind of Moodle, but it also combined with like a video, a speaker, and I think, yeah, I think I will be less stressful for this semester compared to last semester. But the thing is how we can be flexible. Although we have limitation, how we can be flexible, we can be like have flexibility, leadership, initiative. As that's the thing that I'm thinking that the students and lecturer have yeah, they have like this skill in this COVID and in this 21st century, like technology, leadership, and then flexibility, social, so we can reduce stress, and hopefully, yeah, the classroom still works well.
Yeah, that's fantastic. It's really amazing to see how you guys, you know, go like the extra miles for your students and really try to engage them. And I totally understand that it's a very difficult time, but I think teachers are really amazing, you know, in putting like extra effort to engage their students and just really, I guess, make the experience, the learning experience more engaging and more fun for the students as well. So we do have a few questions from our attendees. One question is targeted to Baron. So do you have any tips on preparing the expression of interest letters? How did you get the most of out of the placements?
Okay, so I think there's two questions there, if I'm not wrong. How do you get the most out of placement, and how do you prepare the expression of interest? Am I right?
Yeah.
Is that what you said? Sorry, I didn't.
Yeah.
Okay, so look, I guess with an expression of interest letter, I can't remember who said it, whether it was Helene, Kiki, or Anna. Someone said it, and I forgot who it was. But being proactive with making contact with schools and understanding, particularly here in the Australian context, that schools will start looking at hiring around now. So if you start looking at Seek, or if you look at, you know, whatever platform it is you're looking at, whether you go to the school website directly or whatever it is you're doing, you'll notice that you'll come to a point where schools will have what we call that selection criteria. Now, Victorian, I guess, key selection criteria for state government schools in that sense are far more stringent. And I'm not going to comment too much on that at that point, because I guess what I'd be saying is you've got to ensure you address it. So if the question here is how do you express a key to write an expression of interest, it's really important to be able to identify what the values of the school is in the first place, right? I mean, hypothetically, if the school says something like, you know, and I'm completely making this up, and the school says something like, we value authentic relationships between parents and teachers and students, or something like that, and you write in your letter, I base my academic discipline particularly on the building of relationships with the value of trust between myself and the parents. Generally, the school's going to look at this and think of one of two things. This person's either ripped it off from the website, or number two, they're going to go, this person's views are in line with what the school is on about. But just be aware that schools know that you do it. We know that people copy and paste, like we know that. So it's really important to not copy and paste things, I guess, in that sense. So that's the first bit. Now, the next part of the question was, what do schools look out for, I guess, in that sense? Generally, what they'll look out for is, number one, do you have the qualifications? So of course, if you have the qualifications, fantastic, great. And I suspect that's why we're all here. But at the same time as well, you also have to look at the context of that school. So for example, my first school was in a place called the Latrobe Valley, which is in the middle of Gippsland. You know, kids were going into school, breaking windows, bringing knives into school. That's a really harsh environment to work in. You compare that to the current context that I'm working in. I have a middle to upper class sort of clientele, I guess, if you like. You've got to make sure that you tailor your application to what the school is going to be looking for. Now, that said, it's not about faking it till you make it, because people will see through that very, very quickly. It's about being able to say, look, is this school the right fit for me? Now, at the same time, I also understand that as I guess as a potential graduate, what you're going to be doing is saying, I'm just going to apply to everything, and whatever I take, great, fantastic. And that's fine. That's okay. But you have to be aware that schools will know that you're doing it. So I guess I'm hoping anyway, just being mindful of time constraints, I'm hoping that I've answered the 2 points to it, but just be aware that schools, particularly those of you in your final year now, I would start sending out expression of interest letters now. Don't wait until the jobs are being advertised.
Yeah, that's really amazing. I think that was great answer, straight to the point. And I really like how, I think you also mentioned it in your talk, that you have to be authentic, you know, no matter what. And that's really important. I think, you know, I think Monash Career Connect, they also run like workshops. I think some of you also refer to that. And those also have like some tips about writing like letters, like cover letters, and how to address the key criteria as well. But yeah, like Byron said, I think it's really important to understand and see if the school's values actually align with your value as well. And I think that applies for, you know, any industries, not just in education. But yeah, that was really great answers. So we have a few other questions targeted to everyone. So another, I guess, more general questions is, how do you cope with procrastination? Does anybody want to answer that?
Maybe I can try. Is there anyone want to answer? All right. So, in my experience, I try to be. I can consider myself a procrastinator, but make sure a responsible procrastinator. So make sure before you did all the essay, because in my degree, all we had is essay for our assessment. So make sure you read a lot of literature. So even though you think that, okay, I will write later, I will start later, but make sure you have that knowledge right before you try to start it. So you're just not going to wait until you start without doing nothing, without having any input or literature that you need to read. Again, also I try to find some videos that related to my essay, because sometimes when I see the journal, I feel like I get bored with some journals. So I got some input and literature from videos that really help me to boost my motivation, and then to write down, to take notes, and then later on to write my essay. Thank you.
Thank you for your answer. Does anybody want to add something?
Yeah, I think procrastination is actually normal. It happens to me too often time. But the thing is, first of all, we should write the deadline or the due date of our assignment. So if we want to get lazy, so we remember the due date. If it is still quite long, it's okay. Sometimes you can go outside, or you can get other activities. For example, me going to footy or cooking. Yeah, it's just fine, but don't just don't on the bed too long, because maybe you will be sleep a lot of time. So just like refresh your brain to other activities, like, yeah, especially the use physical movement like sport, exercise, or cooking, and then come back again to your assignment, especially when it close to the due date. Thank you.
Thank you. Those are
I might
really
jump in for a second, actually. With that as well, I was having a chat with a mate of mine. Her name's Kelly. She used to be on the MUISS committee way back at the time when I was in uni. And she, I was talking to her about this conversation we're going to have tonight. And I think one thing that's really important for people to be mindful of, and both Kiki and Anna touched on it as well, and just be aware as well that as teachers in education, your kids will hold you accountable. I think that's really important to be mindful of. If you think about yourselves as well, particularly as students at university, if you hand something into your lecturer and they don't put the mark up and they say it's been 2 weeks or what, I don't know what the deadline, what the turnaround time at Monash is anymore, you're going to go, hey, come on, like, where's the thing? So you got to be mindful as well that the kids will do that to you. So
Yeah.
I guess if that is going to put pressure on you, like, and this is me, I've got some year 12 exams I've got to mark. I'm going to do it after this when I finish this tonight. You're thinking about this, you've got to be mindful that with procrastination, are you procrastinating effectively? I think that's what Anna was saying before. Like, if you're doing that with the intention of taking a time out to refocus yourself, that's not actually procrastination. Because you've also got to remember that about 50 to 75% of your communication is nonverbal, meaning that sitting in front of a computer, you're looking out for all these nonverbal cues. It's okay to take time out. Like, it's really important to do that. So I guess what I'm saying is don't feel bad about it. Of course, if you go, I'm going to, go out and get bubble tea and stay out for 2 hours or whatever, that's completely different. That's not procrastinate. That's just wasting time. But if you're a boba, yeah, whatever it is, like, you've got to be mindful that if you're taking time out to recharge, that's different. I think that's really healthy, and kids need that as well.
Wow, that's really interesting. But yeah, I really like the point that you made. The fact that you're, a teacher gives you some kind of pressure to, because you will be the role model for your students. So if you want to hold them accountable, you must also somehow like find yourself accountable. But then procrastination is not always a bad thing. I guess, like you said, it can be something that works in favor. And makes you, I guess, more productive in a way. But yeah, you just have to know how to use it, like, I guess, mindfully. That's great. So we have a few more questions in terms of like the job application. I know that we're kind of over time, but I think that some questions are really interesting, and maybe a lot of students will have the same question and concern as well. So Mia asked, what platforms are there to find jobs that do not require teaching qualification, and what skills are required, and what aspects do schools value the most?
Okay, I will try. I think it depends on the context. Probably in Australia, quite strict with the rules or requirements, but in Indonesia, sometimes in particular office can be flexible. They will be looking for the skills instead of qualification, and also I think this time, this COVID-19 also give us time to be more flexible. For example, if you are under pressure to work in a like institution or office, actually you can just create a job for yourself. For example, you become like YouTuber, blogger, or writer, or yeah. And then the second one, if you want to do actually like kind of collaborate between education and business, I think it can work too, especially when we integrate with technology. For example, you make a particular tutoring about particular topics. I don't know whether science or English, for example, whether TOEFL, IELTS, or English for foreign speaker, and then you just record or make a team to edit a perfect video, and then you can upload on your YouTube channel. And I think, yeah, you maybe become famous YouTuber at the same time you are tutor or teacher. So yes, I think this time is quite flexible, especially when we can integrate with technology. Yeah.
I try to add some points. I think because the platforms, I think now a lot of job seeker platforms like LinkedIn, even though the Telegram or the trusted one from WhatsApp of your friend. That's why you have to make to build networking, I guess. And then I will focus to the second question: what skill I require and what aspect do school value the most? I think it relate, like Baran said, is related to school value. But in my experience, when I applied to the school, I got like 8 times selections process. So I have 8 steps of selections. But what they value most is our responses. So they give us like some cases, and then they want analyze how we solve those problems. And of course, because we are talking in teaching context, they will have a many what is it called, a mini teaching, like a mini teaching a demo. So they will analyze and evaluate your performance directly. So I think that's what they value most, beside your belief and your perceptions of school, how you handle some problems, also your teaching skill that's shown with the demo. Thank you. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Kiki and Anna. Helen?
Is it okay I can add some more for the platform?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so for early childhood, there's actually a lot of platform you can apply for the jobs before you graduate. You don't have to be a teacher. You don't need to get the teaching qualification, 4 years teaching qualification. Because like I said before, if you finish your degree, 30% of it. So just simply provide your academic transcript, 30% of it, and you can become a certificate-free educator. Half of your degree, you can become a diploma educator. And those platform will be, for early childhood, will be MacArthur, Tradeway, Raystand, and ANZAC. And for primary, will be a lot for ANZAC. I think Tradeway has some for primary as well. So those, and they also provide, before you graduate from primary qualification, you can become a teaching aide. So that doesn't require any bachelor qualification. As long as you have kind of experience in placement, you'll be fine with that and have it go. I will type some websites on the chat so you guys can refer to it. Either you are primary or secondary or early childhood. You can go have a look.
Yeah, thank you so much, Henley.
No
Byron,
worries.
do you want to add something?
I think it's been pretty well covered. The only thing I'd probably add to that is when Helene sort of picked up on it at the end there is that, you know, you don't necessarily need to have the qualifications for some particular areas in order to get into the industry. However, I'll take it a step further because my experience is in the secondary schools and the colleges here in Melbourne. It's a bit different, I guess, is that it's quite normal now for people to enter a school as what we call a learning support officer or an integration aide or like or whatever you want to call that. I'm not sure what the academic lingo is at the point currently. And it's quite normal for people to go in that way. Like it don't necessarily, and this is going to sound horrible, but you know, you don't necessarily want to expect to be able to apply for a job and they put you in the classroom straight away. You know, some people might be able to say, right, you be an integration aide or a learning support officer for X amount of time. You know, a good mate of mine, a colleague of mine, you know, he's actually worked through that way. He started off as an integration aide within the classroom, and now he's one of the, he's what we call a head of house. So one of, he's got a position of leadership in the school. So I guess don't be, or not say don't be afraid, it's probably not the best way to put it, but you got to be mindful of what the expectations are. Get into the industry. Again, I can't remember who said it. One of the other panelists said it. Get into the industry first, take it from there.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. And just, I guess on that note, I guess something that stood out to me throughout your talks was the fact that, you know, you said that it's, I think it's not just in education, but a lot of industries are the same in that like 70% of the market is actually a hidden market. So you actually have to, you know, try to expand your networks and your connections and try to, like you said, get into the industry. So I guess as a question, do you guys have any tips for that? How do you actually, you know, connect with people? And I know that you guys have quite like different experiences, since some of you are teaching here in Melbourne, but some are teaching in your your country back home. So how does that work for you?
For me, I like to join some activities, especially like during seminar or workshop, National Education Summit. As much as possible, I try to connect with others during education-related activities.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Kiki.
And also, the interesting thing about Indonesia is the social organization is quite communal. I mean, more people in Indonesia is tend to be community instead of individual. So actually, it can connect easier in Indonesia, and also we can after that connect it with WhatsApp group or my list. For example, also I came to Monash because of a scholarship from Indonesian government, and then after I graduate, we have the alumni of Melbourne. We also have the ORG based on my page in the my list, and then yeah, and then we create WhatsApp group, and then yeah, sometimes we have Telegram too, but WhatsApp group a lot. So it's quite easy in Indonesia to connect it, and then we share information including jobs, yeah, including yeah, anything. So especially WhatsApp groups, and then we can connect it to each other.
Great. Byron and Helene, do you guys want to add something since you're teaching in Melbourne, right? So how did that work for you after graduation? I think Helen mentioned that she was quite lucky because she actually had a lot of options. Is that right?
Yeah, because I was quite lucky because maybe they see me got lots of experience, and I always really prepare myself when I after I send a resume, because it's a bit different with primary school. We don't really have to write the key selection criteria, or just send out the CV cover letter, and maybe after 1 week I'll follow up. And during the interview, I always prepare myself things that I did in uni, and some pictures of me teaching students, and like some documentation I did. We really have I bring it to you interview, and they see me really prepared, and also bring out a teaching portfolio that I always prepare for my interview. In there, there's some my resume, my philosophy, and some important information, and as well as some important certificate, especially for early childhood, they require like anaphylaxis, asthma, first aid. These are all the things you need to prepare before you go for the job application. And some things like the documentation I did with children, like how they learn, and how I document them there, and how I communicate with parents. And some of the learning environment I did in different areas, literacy, numeracy, science, how I did, and I also make them out and very visible that the employer will really see, oh, you know that, you know what we need. So yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I guess just in close, I agree with everything that everyone else has said. I think an advantage, obviously the COVID situation would have made it a little bit, well, very difficult this year. But you know, for here in Australia, if you need to do or to be qualified or registered with the VIT or the Victorian Institute of Teaching, you need to do at least, I think it's 45. They usually give you 50 days worth of placement, and 45 is what you need in order to be able to qualify, I guess, if you put it that way. During your time on placement, you generally make a lot of connections with the teachers that you are being supervised by, I guess, or your supervising teacher. You generally have an opportunity to meet with other people as well when you're on campus as well. I know when we were allowed back on school campus, I spent a lot of time with the pre-service teachers, just in conversation, having dialogue, and being able to obtain those industry connections. Because you know, the reality is going to be is that all of us will move around from school to school from time to time, and it's about who you know, I guess, in that sense. And don't get me wrong, I'm not suggesting for a second that you can sort of just know the right people and get in there, right? It doesn't work that way either. You've got to be good at what you do. And I think what Helene has said there before is also a really good example in terms of building that portfolio. But I guess the only thing I'd add to that in summary of everything that everyone else has said is that, you know, once you've made those connections, maintain those connections, because, you know, you'll bump into someone somewhere. You know, I'll give you an example. You know, when I did my Masters of Educational Leadership in 2015 to 17, I bumped into people there at ACU where I did it, and it was a funded course. And there was people who I was sitting with, I kind of went, oh, so you know XYZ, yeah, you know him, you know her. And we all realized we all knew someone that we knew, and that networking is really important. So that as I said, I keep coming back to it, that authenticity is really important. Be true to the values that you hold. Be honest with it, and be honest with the school. They will see through it if you sort of go, they'll know. Okay.
Yeah, I think those are really, really good points. So just on that note, I think, yeah, making connections and maintaining connections are really important. But in this time where, everything has to be done remotely, online, what platforms, or, what other channels of communication do you think would be useful for students to reach out to those people in the industry?
Sorry, was that a question for me or was it just general?
Yeah, it's just a general question targeted to everyone.
I guess again, I'll speak of the context here. Again, I understand as well that with the current climate, everything is remote, and I'm not sure what everyone else is using. Zoom, of course, is one. Teams is another one. Google Forms. There's so many different platforms. But even during this time, I know some universities are still sending pre-service teachers to gain experience at schools anyway. For example, my pre-service teacher, I was talking to him on the phone yesterday night doing a Year 12 biology assignment because he has to do something for university. He's at La Trobe though. I still think that whilst it is a remote connection, I think we've also got to remember that whilst COVID has disrupted things now, it's forced a lot of innovation in the sense that, for example, look at the way that we're meeting now. Right. I mean, ordinarily we'd be, on campus and having this conversation. Parent-teacher interviews, for example, are now all going to be done remotely for some settings in that point, and I think that's a really good thing. So I think it's about innovating. How do we keep connected with the communities that we're trying to get into, even though we're in a situation where it's completely remote, if that makes sense, right? So LinkedIn communication, like you've got all our contacts now, I guess, in this sense, being able to communicate with us, other people within the field, being able to express areas of interest that are, I can't remember who said it specifically. I think it was Kiki was talking about inclusive education, for example, right? Being able to be passionate about an area that you can specialize in, that will link up with someone's values somewhere, and making sure that that is at the forefront of what you're trying to communicate, regardless of who you're talking to, whether it's in person or remotely.
Yeah, that's great. Does anybody want to add something to that?
I just want to add, because of this COVID-19, I think people always find their way to adapt. For example, like before I joined the voluntary, like Internations, is like the international community who help unfortunate children in slums area here in Jakarta. Also with some teachers in South Jakarta, we have like annual meeting to have discussion on some practice. But because of this COVID-19, we don't stop there. So we do it now virtually. So we still have like a weekly seminar, but we do it virtually. And we can involve more and more people compared to what we did before. So it's like a blessing in disguise, I guess. Yeah, so we can stop but we adapt. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think adaptability is also one of the very important, I guess, skill that recruiters will be looking for as well, especially in the current situation where things change so quickly, and we all have to learn how to adapt. So that's amazing. Does anybody want to add something to that question? Yeah, Anna?
Yeah, it is time to especially to reflect that, we need to encourage our students, especially in the psychology, like for example, mental health. Sometimes the students do not really focus on the content, but they are more tend to be care or nurture. So just I think to try to our best in this time, in this hard time, to also consider about the students' mental health besides putting the content, and also some skill that we already agree, for example, like flexibility, also initiative, social, and then absolutely technology or media is the key of this time, especially in teaching and learning process.
Great. Yeah, that's awesome. So I guess one last question that I had for you guys is, oh, actually, there's like another question sending from the attendee. Where to start for a new graduate just completed their degree? Does anybody want to answer that question?
Could I clarify? Does that mean that where to start for a new graduate just complete? Does that mean you've just graduated? What do you do next? Is that what it is? I'm sort of just trying to clarify that there.
Yeah. So the person who is asking that question, would you mind to maybe pop it in the chat, or like send through another question to clarify what you mean by that? And in the meantime, I actually have another question for you guys. So I think that's also a question that came up in the chat as well. So in terms of, I guess, your working experiences, being an international student, graduate, and coming to the new working environment, do you guys encounter any like difficulties in terms of maybe cultural differences or like language barriers or anything like that? And if so, how do you actually overcome it?
I think for that questions, can I reflect to my experience when I was working in Australia instead?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I tried to work at after school hour, and I found it really difficult at some schools because I was part-time assistant before. So I worked from school to school. So I found it very difficult at some school to understand their accents and in terms of their culture. So I experienced a culture shock a little bit. And it's good that I can manage a good relationship with them because we try to always share some values or cultural values differences between us. So I found many of Australians, especially, they are interested to know more about my culture back home, and that is how we create a bonding between us.
Yeah. Awesome.
I think that with that, particularly here in the Australian context as well, we've got to remember, I mean, I'll give you my example. Look, I'm from Singapore originally. I was actually messaging Kiki separately before. I was talking about Jakarta. Right? I used to live in Jakarta actually for quite a number of years before I moved to Australia. And that was, quite a few years ago now. I think that the important thing for people to be mindful of is that being understanding of how people see you. So if we use the academic jargon, look at the paradigm of thinking, what lens do people see you in? International students are all different, right? I think we all know that, right? Every international school student is different. Every domestic or local student is different too. The one thing that we all have in common is that everybody is different. So I think if we can see past that point of saying, right, for example, I'm from, as I said, I'm from Singapore originally, right? So I have experience of being in the military for 2.5 years, for example, right? I grew up in that education system, and, I spent a bit of time in Indonesia, quite a lot of time actually. It doesn't necessarily mean that your views, remember, and I bring it back to the point, the values of the school is a certain list of whatever it is. If you can align yourself with that value, and I say this to the kids in my class too, if you and I have the same end goal, how we get there may be irrelevant. So for example, right, if I say to the parents, if you're a teacher and you're talking to your kids, you want what's best for your kid, I want what's best for the kid, and so does your student, right? You and I may disagree on certain points on how we get the student there, but we want to get to the same place. If we can align that, I think it doesn't really matter where you came from, I guess, in that sense. And I'm not being dismissive in saying your cultural value is not important. That is very important, absolutely. But understand what the commonalities are as opposed to the differences. Embrace the differences, but look at what you have in common. And I think you'll find that there's a lot of commonalities with us for me as a former international student, as being here in Australia. If you target yourself to that end goal, you'll realize you can actually get pretty far pretty quickly. And people, as Kiki said, want to know about you. They're interested to know about us as internationals.
Yeah, great.
Really agree with that. As long as we have the same goal, and actually, as a teacher, as an educator, our aim is always for the purpose of the children, the purpose of the student. So as long as we share the same purpose, why not? I think we can work on it.
Yeah, that's really awesome. I definitely agree that, in everything, I guess having a strong sense of purpose is really important. And like you said, knowing the end goal that we are working towards would be like a great, foundation to build a good relationship with your students or with the parents as well. And I guess even with, like you said, I really like the point that Baron said earlier, the fact that, we are all different. Like even with local students and graduates, they may have their own like difficulties as well. And, it's always like you always have to try to, I guess, maybe try to make that, instead of thinking it as a weakness, it's actually a point that makes you stand out, I guess, being an international student. So that's really great. I think for the question.
Sorry to interrupt you, that question that came up before, whoever it is who typed it in clarified it, and what they were asking about was how do we go about, I guess, applying for jobs in that sense. So I'm happy to respond to that unless somebody else wants to.
Yeah, so yeah, I actually want to get back to that question because there was like a clarification here. So yeah, does anybody want to jump in?
I can talk about the Australian context. Again, I'll use the Australian context. I'm assuming that, if you're looking at jobs here, the biggest thing is to be proactive. I know it sounds really airy-fairy. Be proactive. Look for the jobs before the jobs come to find you. Because if you're sitting around waiting for jobs, you can probably guess that there'll be hundreds of other people doing exactly the same thing. So that expression of interest letter, again, I forgot who asked it in the beginning, but being proactive, get in communication with the schools, assuming that's what it is you're trying to do. You do that before the school, and I'll be open with you. Some of the jobs that I've got before was when I wrote an expression of interest to the principal of the school, and the principal actually called me back and said, hey, I'd like to have a chat with you, and I got jobs that way. So that said, though, I will admit there is a caveat here. The principal of that particular school actually knew my previous principal, and I'll be open. I told my previous principal that I was open for jobs. So they had communicated with one another. By the time I went there, they already knew. So that's why I'm sort of putting together the networking there as well as being proactive. So I'm hoping that answers the question of whoever it is who asked it. Essentially, don't wait till the jobs appear. Go send expression of interest letters first.
Yeah. Anything else you guys want to add?
Maybe.
Yeah.
Sorry.
You want to first, Helen?
Yeah, I'll go first. Yeah, so I think if you made a school you really, really like, and go for the volunteer first. They see your passion, and maybe when there's a vacancy come out, they will consider you at first, which is a really important thing, I think. Yeah. Oh, and then you guys can go.
I think I just want to add the point that don't start when you finish when you complete the degree. I mean, if you like some targeted school, just try to get information right before you complete your degree, so you have very well prepared. Like what I said before, maybe you can follow on their social media, like on their Instagram. You get up to date with what they are doing, so you have some hints before later if you apply for the job and having interview, so you get some knowledge about it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Anna, do you want to add something?
Yeah. Okay, so when the job is so competitive, so of course you have to understand about the rules, or you have to look the information about the company or school background. So you have to understand about that, the rules, the background, and the values, or some professional stuff about the school. And the second one, I think also when we want to do something, that our intention is want to contribute to others, we want to serve others, I think everything can be easier. I mean, I don't know whether it is blessing or not, but the thing is, especially maybe when it comes interview, so just focus on what you can contribute to the community instead of what you can get to yourself. I think that's the good point based on my experience, especially when I got an interview from my student ambassador, from my scholarship. Usually I focus on what I can do, especially, for example, my community, and what I can contribute after my degree I achieved. So focus on to serving the community. And the last one is when you are doing something, I mean, when you are a student or when you are doing voluntary activity, just like really, I mean, immerse yourself in there. For example, just will networking as much as you can, and then also if you still have spare time, you can put other activities, maybe organization or community. And I think whether you need the connection or not, but someday you will connect it to each other again, and then, oh, like, oh, I met you, and then this organization, blah blah blah. And it's really nice to be connected, and I think you will also get more information, you will get more opportunities. So when you finish or graduate, so you don't feel confused to look for, but you already get the information, you already develop your networking, and at the same time you have voluntary activities, you have social involvement, and I think it's going to be very beneficial, of course, whether in the long term or short term.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for answering that question, and thank you for whoever sent that question. I think that's a very good question, and it actually it's a good way to conclude our event with great tips. I guess if I have to sum up, the main points of your guys' tips today, that would be, planning things ahead, be proactive and well prepared, and try to connect and maintain those connections with people. And also, I guess you also have to show genuine interest in people, in what you do, and have a strong sense of purpose. So those are really amazing and inspiring tips for I guess students who are looking for a job. And I guess if you guys have any more questions for our alumni, you can always connect with them, reach out to them on social media. We have sent you the contact details there, so you can always reach out to them later if you have any more questions or want to know more about their journeys as well. And I'm just a bit conscious of time, but thank you so much for staying over and try to answer all the questions. I hope the event has been really informative and insightful for our students. So yeah, I just want to thank you all, our panelists, for coming today and for your time with us. And hopefully our attendees will, you can always try to connect with our alumni later. And lastly, I just want to remind you that you can get a chance to get into the lucky draw if you just scan this QR code here and then answer some of our survey questions. But other than that, do you guys have any closing notes or anything you want to add before we wrap up here?
I suppose, just to bring it back to the point again, ultimately at the end of the day, the authenticity is important. You make it about the kids. Ultimately we're in there to support these students, and regardless of which school you go to or whatever institution you decide to work in the future, ultimately it's about not say being servitude to the kids in that sense, but it's all about being able to remember to keep them at the center of everything that we do, and that should serve as both the motivation in terms of aligning our values, as well as being able to motivate ourselves to get what it is done. Because when the kid shows up, says, hey, thanks for all of what you've done for me X way down the track, 10, 20, however long years, that's going to have significantly more value than anything else, in my opinion anyway, and being able to make a difference in kids' lives.
Awesome. Thank you, Baron. Does anybody else want to say something?
I just want to say again one word: love what you do and do what you love. Yeah, because teaching is really noble activity. So just do what you love and love what you do. Thank you.
Awesome. Great quote.
From me, I agree with those with Brian and Anna as well. I think as a teacher, because we are in education context, all we can do is we are working, but we are learning as well, and try to bring best individuals uniqueness of every children. Thank you. That's what I try to do now in my current working places, because my background also about the inclusive education. So I really want every children, regardless their differences and ability, have the same chance to learn, to experience meaningful learning experience. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I will add my point. Be really confident with yourself. You are bilingual. You having so many experience. You see many countries, so be confident. You can do that, and also don't look down yourself. When I get into the workplace that I have, most of my colleagues, they're older than me. I'm actually the youngest one in my workplace, but I'm the leader. So be confident with yourself, and you have so much knowledge you learned from uni. You are fresh. You can bring so much to the area. So be confident.
Yeah, thank you so much for you know, all the encouraging words and for sharing your wisdom and your experience with us. And I guess, you know, you guys are and will continue to be our heroes, and you will be the one who, you know, like provide guidance and also knowledge to the next generation. So you guys are really you know, our heroes. So just wanted to say that I hope everyone will stay safe and you know, continue to work and contribute to whatever you're doing, and keep up the great work. And thanks to our attendees who joined us today. Again, if you guys have any question, feel free to reach out to our alumni. But otherwise, have a good night, and hopefully we will see you in other events of MUISS as well. Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.